Hello, this is Anime Addiction, and welcome to another episode of Let's Animize Death Battle. Today's fight will feature two of the most iconic giant monsters of film history, Godzilla vs. Gamera. Now, everyone will pretty much agree that this will be one of the most epic death battles ever shown on this series, and I, for one, am looking forward to watching and analyzing this death battle in depth. Now, as always, if you haven't seen this death battle yet, please go to screwattack.com or their channel on YouTube so you can see the original and not get spoiled. And as always, I will allow Boomstick and Wizard, the stars of Death Battle, to make the introductions and the pre-battle analysis before I give my 2 cents. So, let's get started, okay?
Kaiju, the Japanese word for
a giant monster that destroys everything around it, like Godzilla, the king of the monsters.
And Gamera, the guardian of the universe. Despite being box office rivals for half a century, these two enormous creatures have never met. Until today.
He's Wiz and I'm Boomstick.
And it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle. The year was 1954, less than a decade after Little Boy and Fat Man had decimated Japan.
The nuclear age had begun.
As the United States tested their shiny new hydrogen bombs across the Pacific, one of them woke something up.
Godzilla, the radioactive, rampaging savior/destroyer of Japan.
Mutated by nuclear energy, Godzilla stands over 300 feet tall and weighs 90,000 tons. He is an unstoppable force of nature.
And for some reason, Godzilla has made Japan his personal playground and has been stomping through it for 60 years.
Couldn't he have picked on some other country?
Godzilla's radioactive mutation leaves everything in his wake contaminated. Water, plants, even people. Godzilla's presence alone turns a city block completely uninhabitable.
Like that noisy upstairs neighbor, or people who let their dog shit in your front lawn.
But Godzilla does not simply walk past his enemies to destroy them.
His strength is insane. He once lifted and threw his arch-rival Kaiser Ghidorah, who weighs 100,000 frickin' tons.
He channels this strength through his claws, teeth, tail,
and epic gravity-defying drop kicks.
Hilarious abilities aside, Godzilla would not be such a legendary kaiju without some serious firepower. He can emit atomic energy from his body for a short-range nuclear pulse.
Or fire his signature atomic breath, a goddamn laser beam of pure radiation. That's like microwaving at least 100 balls of tinfoil.
Well, give or take a few million.
The atomic breath can melt, burn, or blow up just about anything. And you know it just can't smell good. I mean, that's a lot of fish.
No. That right there is Zilla, the bastardized and shamed American version that Toho literally bought the rights to and completely rebranded just to murder on screen.
Take that, America.
And that was just the real Godzilla's standard atomic breath.
Yep, after absorbing a giant pterodactyl's soul, okay, he gained the power to boost his breath to the red spiral ray.
An attack so deadly, it only took a few blasts to obliterate the more powerful clone of himself, Space Godzilla.
What? Space Godzilla?
Yes, Space Godzilla's a thing. Moving on.
Oh.
Godzilla's cell structure can quickly regenerate from all manner of wounds. And despite being vulnerable to man-made electricity, he possesses magnetic properties. Like a lightning rod, he can attract thunderbolts from the sky and use nature's power to enhance his own abilities. Or turn himself into a giant living magnet.
Magnets? How do they even work? Well, believe it or not, that isn't the weirdest thing that Godzilla can do. If Big G needs to get somewhere quick, he bends over, charges up, and does this.
Well, at least Japan is creative?
Wait, can that even happen?
Scaling to the present to actually lift his body means the atomic breath must have a force of over 328 trillion psi. That's the equivalent of 1 trillion riot control fire hoses, enough to wrap around the Earth 38,000 times.
Damn. Godzilla has 44 known victories, largely due to his insane durability. He's fallen into a volcano, survived a black hole, and tanked a meteorite point blank without a scratch.
But despite popular belief, Godzilla is not invincible. His regeneration takes time, his speed is lacking, and despite having 2 brains, one in his skull and the other where his tail meets his torso, he's pretty darn clumsy.
Where were you on that one, ass-brain?
He officially lost a fight against King Kong, and he's even died in 4 separate films.
But Godzilla's victories definitely outweigh his failures. There's a good reason they call him the King of the Monsters.
The year was 1965, the apex of the space race. Technology was advancing further and faster than ever before, but no one could have anticipated the bioengineered marvel hidden beneath the waves. Eons ago, the ancient people of Atlantis learned how to construct life and foolishly decided to play God.
But instead of creating something safe like a dog or a bunny, they created giant flying laser-shooting murder birds. Surprise, surprise, they couldn't be controlled, and they turned 100% of Atlantis into oceanfront property.
So, what was their solution to counter these giant destructive monsters? Why, another giant destructive monster, of course! Enter Gamera, guardian of the universe and friend to all children.
Hurry, let's go. You aren't harmless. Gamera doesn't hurt people. He likes them.
Friend to all children? That's a terrible title. How about Gamera, the flying, fire-breathing ninja turtle of doom?
That's actually not far off. For a 260-foot, 10,000-ton turtle, Gamera is quite agile.
And he sticks it! His arsenal includes 2 huge tusks, twin elbow spikes, and a fire breath so strong it can be used underwater, despite being, you know, fire.
Technically, it's highly concentrated plasma, the 4th state of matter. The hottest plasma ever created by man exceeded 3.6 million degrees Fahrenheit. That's hotter than the surface of the sun. Gamera's fireballs can burn through practically anything.
And when he's not spitting hot fire, he fucking eats it!
It's true, a fiery 4-course meal can quickly heal and re-energize him.
Naturally, as a giant turtle monster, he can retract his limbs and head into his shell for extra defense. And then fire rocket jets out of the holes and frickin' fly! What the fuck is this? And why can't my turtle do that? Someday, Mr. Snappy. Someday.
Gamera can fly at speeds breaching Mach 3, over 2,200 miles per hour. That's faster than the world record-holding SR-71 Blackbird.
But how the hell does he know where he's going? And more importantly, how does he not puke his guts out?
The Atlanteans built Gamera using mana, an ethereal energy force connecting all things, places, and people. Everything has a finite pool of mana, which can be measured using a Sega Dreamcast.
But it still can't play DVDs.
A person's mana is dependent on how much influence and authority they possess over others. As Gamera literally holds the world's fate in his claws, his mana levels are off the charts.
Gamera can manipulate his mana in combat, which is useful when you've lost your arm and need to give your enemy a kaiju-sized falcon punch. Fuck yeah!
And if Gamera ever runs low on mana, he can summon more from the Earth itself.
I think he got him. Gamera is fast enough to catch a missile going Mach 10, capable of flying through outer space, and tough enough to survive a nuclear explosion which leveled the entire city of Sendai.
As Sendai is about 152 miles across, this explosion must have yielded nearly 112 megatons of force.
Gamera has a fierce will to fight. No matter how much pain he's in, he'll keep pushing forward for the win.
And he's not just determined, he's actually quite brilliant. He tactically seeks to exploit enemy weaknesses, and is apparently smart enough to repair an alien spacecraft.
He does machines.
But despite his intelligence, he is not infallible. Gamera's supposedly impenetrable defenses have been pierced before. And remember, Gamera is explicitly the guardian of Earth, which does not necessarily include humanity. In fact, Gamera fears mankind may one day become the Earth's greatest enemy.
I knew he sounded too good to be true. He's a hippie turtle.
And yet, Gamera has a strange fondness for children.
Gamera! He will bring kids to his bed, touch them like no other can. Please don't tell on Gamera! No, really.
Actually, he's sacrificed his life to save children on multiple occasions, even used his ultimate self-destruct move, all for the safety of innocent children.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Alright, the combatants are set. Let's end this debate once and for all.
It's time for a death battle!
As always, Boomstick and Wizard did a fantastic job in their pre-battle analysis and their introduction of these two legendary kaiju. Now, even though I try to look at these death battles with an objective mind, I can't help but be excited over the fact I'm going to watch two of my favorite movie monsters go at it to the death. And even though I am leaning more toward Godzilla, I can't help but think Gamera has a chance to even topple the king of the monsters. And as such, let's get started with my pre-battle analysis of both combatants. First of all, we'll start with the big guy, Godzilla. Godzilla, better known as Gojira in Japan, got his start in 1954 with his first movie in black and white named, of course, Godzilla. And even though he's well over 60 years old, he's still one of pop culture's most iconic figure, and you can go to just about any country and say the word or say the name Godzilla and people will know what you're talking about. As for me, I first got my taste of Godzilla when I saw the cartoon show on TV. No, I am not referring to Zilla, I am referring to Godzilla.
Up from the depths, 30 stories high, breathing fire, his head in the sky. Godzilla, 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 and Godzilla.
Yep, that's the one I'm talking about. Even though the 1978 cartoon was pretty campy, and is still considered campy by today's standards, they still kept the true spirit of Godzilla far better than the 1998 movie ever did. Even though Godzuki was pretty much a early prototype for Nintendo's Yoshi from Mario Brothers, as far as I can see anyways. But in any case, let's get to the pre-battle analysis for the real Godzilla. Now, Godzilla has one of the most destructive arsenals ever for a kaiju to possess, which includes, of course, his signature atomic breath. And The death battle pre-battle analysis from Boomstick and Wizard also made a point about his nuclear pulse, which even I didn't know about, and also his ability to do those gravity-defying drop kicks, or even using his atomic breath to fly in a way, and which I found was very amusing, but also very important to note. But probably the biggest factor in Godzilla's favor would be his durability. Now, as you may or may not already know, the real Godzilla would pretty much laugh at any and all of mankind's conventional weaponry. And as for the non-conventional, such as the nuclear bombs and perhaps the cadmium bombs or whatnot from the later Godzilla series and whatnot, they still wouldn't have very much effect against Godzilla. And the original weapon that had destroyed him in the first movie, called the Oxygen Destroyer, no longer exists because the creator killed himself along with the plan, so there's no point in trying to recreate it if you don't have it to begin with. In any case, Godzilla is well known for pretty much tanking just about anything that his enemies will throw at him and keep on coming, and that will play a very large part, I believe, in the battle against Gamera. And the way I see it, with that his trump card, which would probably be that red spiral ray they talked about, I have a feeling that Godzilla is going to retain his title as king of the monsters. Now, switching over to Godzilla's opponent, Gamera, or Gamera as he's called in Japan, I really don't know as much about this particular kaiju as I do Godzilla. Now, for those of you who are wondering, this is the song that Boomstick was parodying during the pre-battle analysis for Gamera. However, I have started watching the more recent films about Gamera, and I'm pretty impressed with him. He's a tough customer, that's for certain, and his shell gives him a lot more added protection than what you would think Godzilla would get. And he's got a variable arsenal, and he has proven to be quite intelligent, and I find that could play a part against his adversary, Godzilla, who pretty much relies mostly on brute force rather than strategy. However, Gamera also has his own weaknesses. As shown in the first movie, he was susceptible to cold, and as they had stated in the Death Battle pre-battle analysis, his shell has been pierced, and I did notice that Gamera had a tendency to lose the first round or withdraw from the first round against his opponent, then coming back with new knowledge. And that may not work against Godzilla. Now, in his defense, Gamera has the advantages of being faster, smaller, thus being a little less easier to hit, and he can fly, in which case he would have a greater maneuverability than Godzilla. However, the way I see it, Godzilla has handled flying adversaries before, and in most cases he has come on top. So that may or may not be enough to go up against Godzilla. Now, as for who I think would win in this death battle, I would have to give the overall victory to Godzilla. Not just because he's far more well known than Gamera, but because of his own overall strength and power, which in my opinion is far greater than that of Gamera, and he may not be giving Gamera the chance to retreat and come back with new knowledge in order to defeat him with. Godzilla is relentless. That much we know about him, either as playing as a hero or villain or just as a destructive force of nature. He is completely relentless, and that will, I think, will spell Gamera's doom in this death battle. I have nothing against Gamera. I like him just as much as I do Godzilla, but I think that Godzilla is going to be the one who comes out on top. So let's begin the death battle and see if I'm right. Boomstick and Wizard, let's have us a Kaiju throwdown.
Free arts to his title because Godzilla just made turtle soup.
Gamera may have held the speed advantage, but Godzilla's sheer size and power won this bout.
He's 9 times heavier. Plus, while Gamera tanked a city-busting nuke and almost died, Godzilla tanked a similar explosion from a meteorite and didn't even flinch.
Gamera's shell was once pierced by Virus, a physically weaker foe. There's no doubt Godzilla could overpower this giant turtle.
Hell, he's strong enough to match goddamn Thor. And since Godzilla's atomic breath is composed of pure radiation, not fire, Gamera could not feed off of it.
But most importantly, Gamera has a history of winning through retreating. He usually takes one round to analyze his foe and another to win the day. On paper, this sounds like a smart idea.
But unfortunately for Gamera, Godzilla don't play like that. Looks like Godzilla put Gamera through living shell.
The winner is Godzilla.
Now that was one epic death battle, and I have to agree with everything that Wiz and Boomstick said about Godzilla being able to defeat Gamera. Even though Gamera put up one heck of a fight, and he's got nothing to be ashamed about for that. But in the end, Godzilla's overall might and durability pretty much served him as well as he did in the other movies and all the other adversaries that he went up against in the last 60 years or so. Now, there are a couple of points I'd like to explore before closing this analysis. Now, the first analysis is due to the fact that Gamera is able to fly in space, and some Gamera fans have been arguing that if Gamera had simply left Godzilla in orbit, he could have won the battle. Well, there is an argument to counter that debate. You all remember one of Godzilla's more obscure talents, right?
Well, believe it or not, that isn't the weirdest thing that Godzilla can do. If Big G needs to get somewhere quick, he bends over, charges up, and does this.
Well, at least Japan is creative?
Wait, can that even happen?
Now, by the same reasoning, Godzilla could have used his atomic breath like a retro rocket and push himself back down to Earth, then use his atomic breath again to slow himself down, as he did in the death battle. Following Newton's law, for every action there is an opposite and equal reaction. This would pretty much be the same principle in which the space shuttle goes back down to Earth. So, leaving him out in space wouldn't have really worked for Gamera. Now, the next point is that fans are wondering why Gamera didn't use his mana-powered Falcon Punch on Godzilla after his arm got ripped off in the battle. Well, it's a simple enough explanation for that. After seeing Godzilla take several of his fireballs, survive out in space, and even a very hard landing into the ocean, by that time Gamera feels that the Falcon Punch probably didn't have enough power to finish off Gamera, which is why he resorted to that huge chest blast of his, which unfortunately wasn't enough to stop Godzilla. He was about to use his famed self-destruct maneuver on Godzilla, but at that point Godzilla had had enough and used the red spiral ray against Gamera and blew him apart. By itself, the death battle pretty much played out the same script as any other Godzilla movie I'd seen so far, with the exception of the new one that just came out this year. Pretty much Godzilla appears, he starts destroying a city and whatnot, he then comes across a monster, they fight, and in the end, either Godzilla dies in the attempt or he wins, and in this majority, he won. So, yes, I do agree with this death battle in particular. Now, of all the death battles I've done, this is one of the few that I've analyzed and agree wholeheartedly with Boomstick and Wiz, and I pretty much enjoyed it completely. And until then, I hope that they will give out more death battles that I will be happy to analyze and enjoy with the rest of you Death Battle fans. And until then, I hope you all be well and see you next time.